Unfortunately, most of us don't think of checking or changing the lubricants in the driveline of our vehicle until it's almost too late, until some component in that driveline has failed. Now, if you're real lucky, it'll only be a seal or a gasket and you've got a minor leak. And that's the case with this particular car. We've got a leaking axle seal out at the left rear corner here. So we've got to disassemble the rear axle in order to get the shafts out and change the seal in this particular model. And at the same time, of course, we're going to change the lubricant in this differential. Now, there's other reasons, of course, why you might want to change that lubricant. It should be changed on a periodic basis. However, most motorists don't think of doing that. But there's a new reason why you might want to change lubricants, even if you don't have a problem with leakage or a failed component. And that's the advantage that can be had with synthetic lubricants. So we're going to take the cover off this axle today and talk a little bit about the advantages that can be had and how simple it is to change these lubricants when the car's up on the hoist. One thing you want to make sure of whenever you're changing driveline lubricants is that you don't contaminate the assembly, because there's a lot of dirt and grit hanging around the area. So I'm cleaning off that crevice at the top of this assembly so when I take the cover off, the dirt won't drop inside this unit. Now, the cover's still partially glued on. The adhesion of the silicone gasket material is still holding that cover on. So I've got to give it a little bit of assistance to get it off. And there you can see the lubricant coming out. Now, this is a really thick lubricant. It's an 80W90 gear lube that's in there. And that's part of the reason why you want to think about changing this lubricant, because in the wintertime when it's cold, this is being a very thick lubricant, it tends to produce a lot of drag in your driveline. So switching to a synthetic lubricant can really help the fuel economy of your vehicle. The differential is a pretty tough spot for lubricant to perform in, and that's why we need a lubricant called an extreme pressure lubricant, or EP lubricant, because the friction that takes place between the pinion, that small gear in the back there, and the crown gear right here is a wiping type of an action. There's a lot of load between those two gears, and it takes extreme pressure lubricant to lubricate those. Now, the frequency of lubricant changes in the driveline of your vehicle is going to be dependent on an awful lot of factors. First of all, the type of vehicle that's involved. If it's an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle, or a vehicle that's used for trailer towing, snow plowing, or any other heavy-duty kind of usage, you want to think about stepping up the maintenance procedure on those vehicles, changing the lubricant more often. Or, for example, if your vehicle, no matter what type, has been driven through standing water at any stage of the game, you want to at least check those lubricants, because they may be contaminated and have to be changed no matter when they were changed last. A general rule of thumb, however, if your vehicle is just used for average conditions, every 2 years you should think about changing these driveline lubricants. The synthetic lubricant that we're going to install in the rear axle of this vehicle has a 75W90 rating, and that can be used anywhere where an 80W90 conventional gear lube came out. Now, how do you get this gear lube in small quantities? In most cars and light trucks, you're only talking about a couple of liters per axle, so you're going to buy bottles like this. Now, in most cases, you can just thread a plastic extension tube onto the nipple that comes with the bottle and just squeeze the bottle, curve the tube in, and squeeze the lubricant in. However, on many installations today, you'll find that the position is such that it's difficult to do that. If that's the case, go to a place that sells outboard motors. I happen to buy this little pump from Mercury Marine Outboard Dealer. What you do is just thread the cap off. This thread drops into the bottle to the bottom of the lubricant and threads right on where the cap came off, and then you pump the lubricant out this clear hose and into the axle or transmission, depending on what you're working on. It's a neat, simple, tidy way to do it, and it works out quite well. It's not a very expensive tool to buy. I want you to think about changing the driveline lubricants in your vehicle and spending that little bit of extra money to put synthetic lubes in, because believe me, in the Canadian environment with all our cold weather, there's some pretty significant advantages to be had by using these synthetic lubricants. Certainly in the wintertime, you're going to realize some significant fuel savings. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 96.